All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order, and I don't have my agenda. There we go. Roll call, please. Oh, Crystal's not here. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves.
Here.
Councilmember Saper,
Here.
Councilmember Toll,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Bailey, and Councilmember Roberts is out.
Thank you, and the Pledge of Allegiance this evening will be led by Councilmember Clark. All right, then before we approve the agenda, I'm actually going to go ahead and make one modification to the agenda. I'm going to pull the North Kansas City High School debate team proclamations from the mayor's comments and move them up to the next item so we can get them out of here. So with that, yeah.
There are better reasons.
No, yeah, I'm ready to go. No, it is an honor tonight to welcome the students and coaches of the North Kansas City High School debate team. In case you guys weren't aware, the debate team won the Missouri State Championship. So they brought home some new hardware here to the North Kansas City. We have Trent Dixon and Dua Muhammad won the state championship in policy debate, and the Hornet debate team also won the debate sweeps with team members Trent Dixon, Dua Muhammad, Alden Doherty, Hank Ward, and Alandre Baker. So I've prepared proclamations to help recognize and congratulate the North Kansas City debate team on being state champions. So please join me in congratulating the debate team on their championship. All right. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. All right, now time for the pressure on Tom here. Oh, she thought it was going to take a little longer. Well, it depends on which way she's going to vote on things. Let me see what's up.
The agenda.
Yeah. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item, comments from the public. Is there anyone from the public other than Zach Clevenger wishing to speak this evening? Welcome to the meeting, Zach. I've missed you.
Hey, it feels weird talking from this side. But I wanted to say exciting times about the streetcar. Thanks for the presentation and having that on a work session. So I'll get on and do the survey. Sounds like SWIFT may be the way to go. I also wanted to say excited about the renovations on Ball Diamond 1 in the parks. I know they're moving along on that. It's not maybe going quite as fast as we wanted it to, but it's looking really good. Wanted to commend our Parks Board and some of our Parks members that have been out there almost daily, watching the contract. I don't want to say watching the contractor, but they've been out there checking it out and making sure.
Watching the grass set.
Watching the grass set, watching it grow, making sure that everything's done right. And so some of the older members on the board that have the time to do that and a great asset to our community. I won't mention their names because I don't want to embarrass them, but some of them you just approved last meeting for reappointment. So that's all. Thank you.
Good to see you back. Further public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? No. Motion carries. Item, back to Chris.
Item 12, One North Update Presentation.
Michael.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Rick Warner with One North Master Developer is here to present.
Good evening.
Good evening. So a couple things. After I do the public presentation, we're also going to do an executive session where you'll get a lot more nitty-gritty detail. And so I'll keep this at a high level, and then in executive session, I'll give you the blow-by-blow. So on the first slide, oh, gosh, this is fancy. Okay, this is the general site plan. It represents more what the site looks like right now. We're announcing today that we've got to deal with Genesis Health Clubs. They're going to operate the surfing restaurant. They're going to operate the sand volleyball courts. All of this is open to the public. And so anybody can pay a fee to play volleyball. Anybody can pay a fee to surf. Anybody can pay a fee to use the health club on a daily basis. You don't have to be a member for any of it. And then we are, so
I was going to ask you on that real quick, on that image, though. You said it's sand volley, it's all sand volleyball?
it's all sand
They
volleyball.
just couldn't find you. Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
All right, so that's what those
Color the
splits are
courts,
on
I'm
this-
just making
on
sure
the site
there.
plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then on this slide, the overall update, we're proceeding with the grocery store. I brought the plans with me. That's $300,000 worth of plans that if anybody wants to go through with me, we'll go through with those later. Right, the store's grown to about a 33,000 square foot store. We're going to close the grocery store with the Millhouse Apartments. The grocery store operators requiring the Millhouse Apartments. Millhouse, I think the last thing they need to do is get their final financial review and their site plan approval, and then they're ready to go. Genesis got the checklist for closing, and they are assembling everything they need for closing. And then we've got two restaurants, one on Lot 7 and one on Lot 5. And again, in executive session, we'll go through exactly who those two restaurants are. Next page, this is the elevation of the grocery store. There is outdoor seating that's not reflected on this site plan right now. We have at least one weekly meeting on the grocery store. And many weeks we have 3 or 4 meetings with the architects, the engineers, the interior designers in order to move the plans along. That's the elevation of Millhouse Apartments. The next slide, that's Genesis Health Clubs. You can see the surfing venue at the back of the concept. There's also an outdoor swimming pool by the surfing venue. You can see the sand volleyball courts, and then the restaurant, the gymnasium, the health club, and everything else is enclosed in the main building. Grocery update. Again, it'll be about 33,000 square feet. Timing is getting to be critical because it feels like every week prices are going up. And so originally we thought we could build this for under $9 million. We went to $9.5 million. I have a budget as of Friday of $12.5 million. And so the cost of the store is going up. We're addressing those issues. We've got a 20-year signed lease executed. The city's financial advisors got a copy of that 20-year signed lease. I'm heading up an investment group that we will own the store, and I have an investment package out to other potential equity investors. I'm like 90% sure if I can get the costs to stop moving, that we've got the equity investors. We've got to do some value engineering. So for example, and this is just one example, if you go into a Hy-Vee store and you're in the frozen food section, the lights go out in the frozen food section if nobody's in the aisle. But when you walk in the aisle, the lights click on and the freezers kick on high. That is a very expensive option to add those to every freezer, every refrigerator. So we may go to a less technologically advanced model to save some money, but you're beyond my pay grade. That's between the the architect and the interior planner. But we added a lot of things, like a generator that would run the entire store for, I think, 14 days without electricity. We may end up with a generator that only runs the store for 7 days without electricity. There are things like that there aren't major changes, but we're looking at all the costs because, again, this thing has grown from $9 million to $12.5 million, and we're just trying to put a cap on what some of those expenses are. So it's still anticipated that the store is either going to be a Sunfresh or Fresh Market. Because I usually don't build grocery stores, there are issues that are involved when you brand a store that were never disclosed. And I'll just give you an example. If you're a Price Chopper, you're one of 15 votes to set the ad for the Price Chopper every week. So if a competitor in North Kansas City has had beer on sale for 99 cents for 6 weeks, and the other Price Chopper stores won't vote to let you put your beer on sale for 99 cents, you can't put your beer on sale in the ad for 99 cents. So there are operational advantages to being a Fresh Market at One North rather than being one of 15 stores where you're one vote of 15 stores. And so, again, there are advantages to being your own brand as opposed to being a Sunfresh brand where you're only one of 15 votes.
Let me ask one thing on the Fresh Market, though. There's also already a Fresh Market chain, is there not?
Yes. Well, hold on. There was a Fresh Market chain.
Oh, are they done with
And,
those now?
and my understanding is they're gone.
Oh.
And the operator has several Fresh Market stores where he controls his ad. He completely controls his ad. So he's already using the Fresh Market brand in other markets.
Okay.
Okay, and then
Thank you.
what have we been doing? And again, we'll get in more detail. But after our last meeting, the city staff wanted to make sure everything was safe, that everything would operate correctly, that we had all the right utilities, traffic. And so we had to update the drainage and wastewater study. We had to update the water study. We had to come up with a new draft of a traffic study. And we had to come up with a new draft of access. And we won't have access. I don't think we'll have access resolved until May 10th. And that's working every week. And God bless Kim. We wouldn't be this far along if Kim hadn't called special meetings to get all the architects and engineers in the same room to say, hey, guys, this is taking forever. We send an email, they wait a week, they send an email, we send an email, they wait, And so Kim said, enough of this. We're going to get everybody in a room and try to resolve everything. And so we think we're going to have MoDOT and everybody sign off by May 10th. Why is that critical? I can't finalize the site of the store until I have finalized access for the store. It didn't stop us from drawing the store, the exterior and the interior, but I haven't placed the store finally on the site, and thank God for Kim, because we wouldn't have.
I say it all the time.
We wouldn't have been as far along. On the timetable, again, we're hoping that MoDOT gives us final approval on May 10th. We have, in order to meet some of these higher construction costs, we were expanding the TDD to cover the grocery store, which we presented in January, but now we're also going to include both of the restaurants, the hotels, Old Chicago and Genesis. Our land closing is expected in July. I'm going to try to close the land in June. I'm waiting to hear back. I asked the city for permission to close a little earlier in June. We would, if we close on the land in July, would start infrastructure in July. It is 240 days to build the store, but part of that is, of the 240 days, you have to get the steel. And so we've locked in equipment, the vast majority of the equipment, but until I have the final size of the store, I can't order the steel. We went from 30,000 to 31,000 to 33,000. I've got another meeting tomorrow at 1:30. We may go back down to 31,000 to try to save a little bit of money, but we're still in that range of 30 to 33,000. But we've got to get the steel, and so from the day we close, it's 240 days to build the store, and assuming no other MoDOT delays, access delays, we should be open late March of next year. So that's my public update. And again, we're going to do executive session where I'll be able to give you a lot more details on all these tenants. But I just want to get back here. And for City Councilman Bailey, I know all this is new to you, so I apologize, we're hitting you cold. But I'll answer any general questions you have now, but specific questions, we ought to wait for the executive session.
Fire away, Councilmember Toll.
I just wanted to say I appreciate the public update because I think that's an important process instead of waiting till the very end to unveil everything. I really think, I know we can't talk about everything, but I think this was really important. So thank you for coming.
Okay.
Councilmember Plumby.
I have a couple questions. Can you expand on why we went from 30 to 33,000 square feet? Or because it sounds like if we're going to try and save costs, that maybe shrinking the size of the store makes a little bit more sense than maybe going with a cheaper generator or cheaper fridge.
What happened is we hired an expert that lays out the interior of the store, and this company's called Rippe, R-I-P-P-E. And so what you do when you hire these experts, you go through and say, we want to have a fresh bakery. Okay, and so we listed what's called the program of the store. So then once you list the program of the store, Rippe went back and said, a bakery, if you have, and I'm acting like I know what I'm talking about, and I don't, you have to have 2 wrapping machines if you have your own bakery. I didn't even know you needed a wrapping machine. But you have to have 2 wrapping machines. And each wrapping machine takes 16 square feet. And then you have to have X number of square feet for bathrooms, and you have to have X number of square feet for the back of the house. And you have to have, so after Rippe put their plan together to do the program as we originally envisioned it, it came out to 33,000 square feet. Now, what was crazy to me was we added 10% of the square feet of the store, but because you've already paid for the land, you paid for the parking, you paid for the utilities, it only added $600,000 to the cost of the store by adding 10% more. So that didn't seem logical to me, but the contractor and everybody's assured me, but we really don't want to change the program. The program is what the operator has envisioned. And so is this third-party consultant that all they do for a living is design grocery stores. They came up with it. Now, there are some things that the operator wanted to do on his ideal wish list that he doesn't have to do. And so, for example, so Rippe came up with 3,000 square feet of wine, alcohol, and beer. Maybe we can get by with 2,000 square feet of wine, alcohol, and beer. But they really want to offer a lot of wine, okay? That was one of the things that these guys want to do is offer a lot of wine.
Good, we already got a lot of craft brewery in town, so.
Right, and
Yeah, and so according to Rippe, and again, they're the experts, if people can get everything they want in your store, they only go to your store. But if, let's say we don't have any wine, let's say if people want wine when they go to the grocery store and they can't get wine, then that gives them an excuse not to go to your grocery store. And so Rippey said, hey, for what you guys want to do, here's the program you gave us, here's the design of the store. But I'm working on it, I'm actually working on this every day.
My second question is, can you elaborate on kind of what the holdup with MoDOT is? Is it entering from I guess, Armour side, or is it entering from the Diamond Parkway side?
So the first thing is staff, all of us want it to be safe, okay? So we had to redo the traffic study, and then we had two issues. Coming out of the grocery store, we could either do a right in, right out, or we could do a full interchange. So it's a four-way stop off of, say, 210 into the site. We thought the four-way stop right off of 210 into the site was a long shot. MoDOT said okay on a preliminary basis. MoDOT said okay. And so that really increases the access to the site, makes it a lot easier for people to get in and out. But we had to redraw everything because now we've got a full access in and out of the site. And God, this is horrible to say. One of the things that helped us is the old guy at MoDOT retired and we got a new guy at MoDOT. And so we started from scratch with the new guy. And the new guy said, hey, I think we're okay with this. So long as you can give us all the information you need, I think we're okay with this. And so that's what we've been working on. It's the access, and I think Kim would agree with this. By May 10th, we think we'll have a full access interchange into the grocery store site.
Do we have any say in those traffic lights that would be at that forced stop? Because if you're pulling out of where that big occupational health area is, that traffic light allows 2 cars to go through before it turns red. So I don't know if that's going to be something long-term we can,
That's if you're looking.
which is, it is, I use it frequently. So if we have a say in, because if we are going to have a grocery store right there, traffic is going to be an absolute nightmare if you can only get 2 cars to go through every time.
Yeah, I'll comment on that a little bit. So the traffic signal at Taney and 210, when they got looking at the traffic that this development would generate, they got really looking at the left turn capacity and, how that whole intersection functions. So there will be a relook at the timings and the left turn capacity and just, again, all capacities for that intersection as they get this traffic study finalized.
So who's this new person at MoDOT? No. Further council member comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, I think you hit on a lot of things that I wanted to see as well, and I know we had talked about is just getting some of those dates out there in public because a lot of people are asking, and people aren't stupid, and when they don't see anything happening, they know the project's going to be delayed. But I appreciate you coming out and actually.
And guys, just so you know, when I did Nebraska Furniture Mart, the walls were up, and people were posting on Facebook that the store's really not coming. And the walls were up on a 1 million square foot building at Nebraska Furniture Mart. And people were posting. So there are a lot of negative people out there that won't believe until, now once we put the sign up on the building that said Nebraska Furniture Mart, then everybody believed. And so, we'll have a sign up on this building and then we'll have all the believers. So, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate the update. Next item, please.
Item 13, resolution approving the 16th and Clay parking lot construction, resolution number 22-034.
Mike.
Mayor DeLong, members of the council, under item 13, we present for your consideration contract for services with Gunter Construction Company for the construction of a parking lot at 16th and Clay. Last week, bids were opened for the project. There were 2 bidders. Low bid was Gunter at $1,278,722. Just as kind of a recap, the budget for this year for this project was $1,115,000. Taking into account the cost of demolition of the building at 16th and Clay, and then engineering and design for the parking lot, remaining budget's $912,125. So that the construction cost with contingency, the will attend to that. We would also ask, after this item, or have asked, for a budget amendment of 500,000, should the contract be approved. I just wanted to step through what occurred last week. I'm gonna, any questions about the parking lot itself, I'm gonna defer to Mr. Sands.
You ready? Councilmember Toll.
I had a question, sorry. I didn't turn this on. In looking through this, one of the ideas that we had to offset more expensive options like a permeable surface was to add more green space to offset that, and a heat island effect. So looking at the plans that are here, we have the minimum number of large trees, one for every 25 spots. We have 10. There's 249, I'm going to call that 250 spots. So we have the minimum number of large trees. And they're set up with what looks like it would be aesthetically pleasing, but gives us the least amount of shade over pavement. So I don't see that we're getting great bang for our buck when it comes to shade trees, and that is a concern of mine. I'm also curious to know in the process when an architectural engineer is brought in. So I am concerned because this green space was supposed to be functional. It's for a purpose, not just aesthetic. I'm concerned that maybe they were brought in late in the process and said, these are the plant wells that you have. Let's trim these out with lots of green things. I do see, I think the green feature that's on the south end will look nice and is probably functioning as a rain garden, which is great. But I do have some real concerns about the use of the larger trees, the shade trees, not actually shading the massive amounts of asphalt that are going in. And we did tear down a building with solar panels in order to pave this entire place, so there's a lot to consider there. So I would like to know more about the trees, and I would also like to know about when the architectural engineers are pulled into the process, if they're in it from the beginning.
You mean landscape architects? I guess.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Okay.
I keep saying the
There
wrong
we go.
thing. That's because I don't have my notes pulled up. But yes, when they were brought in, because to me, it feels like in planning, as far as if you're looking at how far the shade, because I'm going off the drawings, and then looked up how much shade each of these types of trees can provide, how wide it is. So like the Kentucky coffee tree can do 40 to 50 feet wide. But in the drawings, based on the sizes of these trees, I'm guessing that circle is kind of circling the areas that can be shaded based on the width of the parking spaces. Is that accurate?
Well, I guess to start there, no, the icons you see in the plans are just kind of just that. They're icons that represent where the trees go. They're not necessarily, they do try to
But 40 to
scale it.
50 feet, how wide is a parking space?
Typically, in this, 9 feet, yeah, 8 to 9
Yeah.
feet.
They're pretty close.
Yeah, so it's pretty, I mean, it's pretty close. I know it's not exact, and every tree is different. We're all unique trees here. But it would be approximately, based on the size of a parking space. Right?
I guess I don't, trying to understand the question. The trees, like you're talking about the diameter that the shade that the tree would cast, I'm not exactly sure, what size they would eventually grow to.
Just based on
but-
the average width of these types of trees.
So you're
when you
kind of
look
wanting to
up.
know like a average of shade given to the parking lot, given these type of trees? I could find that number out. I don't know if I'd have that number tonight, but.
The other thing that I had some questions on, do we have anybody here that we can ask questions of that planned it, or?
We don't have so this was designed by Wilson and Company. They're the city's on-call engineer, and I'm sorry, we didn't know that we would need to have the person who drew this.
So I know we have a lot to talk through, but kind of like what we just did with the One North update, I feel like having an update coming to the public and coming to us earlier in the process would avoid having all of these questions at the very end and people saying, well, we're here and we're ready, we need to sign off on it today. Because this is something that's going to pass, but there are details that are important details. I mean, there was a purpose for asking for a little more landscaping than normal, And from what I see, we have what is the minimum in the code as far as the functional, that, I don't know. I don't see it's not lining up to me on the direction that was given for the parking lot, especially being said that the cost of the parking lot would increase if you wanted that. We're at the minimum, and the costs have doubled from when we were talking about it to getting to budget, and now we're beyond that. So I want to make sure when we're talking about spending the money, and this is something we have control over, we're building this, that we do it right. We don't want to spend $1.2875 whatever million and have the minimum green space that does nothing to eliminate the heat island effect, which is what we had talked about from the beginning. We have a responsibility because we're paving this very large space with asphalt.
No,
So I'm ready to hear about the trees,
oh,
sorry.
there.
Okay. Well, and going back to the beginning, the original design concepts, I don't know if I kind of inherited this from Sarah Copeland, so, I don't know what exactly initially was kind of the idea, but I will say that, typically we would go towards the minimum just to keep cost as low as we can. That's typically, like you said, in the code, there's the minimum standard for a parking lot this size, this kind of a land use, what vegetation would normally go in. So I think that kind of sets the base of the standard where we start. The landscape architect, to answer that question, they are sub to Wilson and Company. They usually kind of very close to it throughout the design, just so we know where things can fit. And then, yes, towards, once we know where vehicle traffic needs to happen, where pedestrian traffic needs to happen, then they can bring in the landscape architect and kind of, fill that in. But the bioswale component is a really interesting and awesome component of the project. Controlling the storm water with that, kind of green solution as opposed to a hard concrete solution is unique and kind of neat that it was incorporated into these plans. I'm not sure if I answered all the questions there. Again, the trees, we don't really have kind of a ratio, I guess, of shade provided, given the kind of species. That's something we can look at getting.
So I have one last question, Kim, because when the cost from when people were talking about it at the very beginning, which I know was just a staff estimate, not an official estimate of the $500,000, which I had said at the time I felt was extremely low, was not going to come close to the cost. And then when we had the budget, which was not that much longer, so we're not talking about something we've been sitting on for 4 or 5 years, then it was budgeted for over $1 million. And I came in to speak to you about that, and you said you didn't know, staff didn't know how nice you wanted the parking lot to be. I took that to mean that providing the amount of shade and green that we needed to offset that amount of pavement was going to be very costly, but we're at the minimum. If it wasn't the city doing it, this is the minimum of what we would ask anyone to do based on codes. So that wasn't the contributing factor to the cost increase, correct?
So the 1.1, which was the budget number that we used, that was the best estimated cost we had at the time. The engineering drawings had not been completed yet. So that was, I'll be honest, the very best number that I could get my arms around, which is why the number showed up in the budget.
Which was more than double in the
Absolutely.
discussions when it was voted on.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I've had a couple council members reach out to me. The original number of 500,000, I'll be perfectly honest, I don't know where that number came from. That number was provided to Eric. I don't know where that number came from, though, and I do apologize.
Matt Webster was called on during that meeting to defend the number, but when I asked Matt later, he said he wasn't a parking lot expert. So what I'm trying to talk about here is a few problems procedurally. I feel like this should have come to us earlier so we wouldn't have these problems at the end. I know these businesses need a parking spot, so before other people talk, I'm not trying to stop this from happening. I'm trying to make sure we do this the right way, how we had talked about doing it from the very beginning. I didn't vote for it, This is one that went to the mayor. It was a tied vote. I did vote to fund it after it passed, obviously. But we had some concerns and some responsibility as a city adding this much pavement. And I feel like we're here at the end product. It's been a long time. We need these parking spaces, and this is not what we had discussed approving. This is not what we discussed approving.
And I'll just add to that, high level, we talk sustainability, and, the urban heat island impact is one of the larger ones that you're going to see here in the Kansas City metro region as you talk sustainability. And I'm just not sure that this plan does enough to mitigate the impact of heat. Councilmember Smith.
So with that, it sounds like cost has been a big point of, stress in this project, and holding those two ideals, like being as green as we possibly can and then keeping costs in control, seem to like they work against each other, unfortunately, because adding more green features, bringing in bigger trees, adding the more curbs that brings in would bring the costs up. And then the major driver, though, of the cost, is my understanding, is since this is asphalt, the major component of that is oil is like a big part of that price. Is that right?
Well, yeah, depending on where oil prices are, kind of where the asphalt index would fall.
Right.
But yeah, that varies from, minute to minute,
When we
really.
did the approval for this, what was the date that we approved, like we voted on with the $500,000 number? Do we know? Was that like just a ballpark? Was it 2021 or 2020?
I want to say it was February of 2021. And
Okay.
I'm pulling into my,
Okay.
the city's counselor is
And
saying
that's fine.
what
We don't
it
need
was.
that. Like, I'm just looking at like an oil price chart right now. We're like more than double what the price of oil was at that point. So if that's part of the big cost driver, like that makes sense that we would have seen the number double or more, because oil is a major component in that. Add the supply chain, add the inflation. Like Rick talked about his grocery store going from 9 million to 12 million. So everything is getting more expensive, but oil has been, you see it at the pump, like it's a huge part of the cost. So like the number makes sense to me, even though it is frustrating to see it jump so high. The other part is if we do delay to go to a redesign, we might miss, and I talked with Kim a little bit about this, we might miss a window to get this done this calendar year. Is that right? If any redesign could push that out.
Depending on how overt the redesign was, and then we would have to rebid it. As you guys have heard before, asphalt companies do their sidewalks roll up, and after a certain time, if your order is not in, your order will not be fulfilled. So there could be, and I don't know how long a redesign would take. I don't know how long a rebid, recontracting process through the legal. But could it impact it being delivered this calendar year? Yes.
Okay. And if we do go to rebid or even re-engineer this, like we could almost back ourselves farther into the corner with a larger number, given what's happening economically right now. We all know where inflation's at. So, I mean, I know that the effect of having fewer trees is not ideal with what we had talked about earlier, but I see needing to get this done before costs balloon even more. And, we made an agreement with the businesses around that to provide them the parking that they lost when the apartments went up. So we're talking, Cinder Block, we've got NKC Nutrition, we've got the hair salon, we've got the whole El Canelo. All the businesses in that area are hurting right now. And the longer we wait, the longer we delay, the more they are hurt by this too. So that's my spot. I mean, I could throw a motion out there. I know there's going to be more discussion, but I would go ahead and move to approve the resolution.
Second.
All right, we do have a first and a second. Further council member discussion.
I'm just going to say to Lisa's point, I mean, she covered a lot of things. I think procedurally, to back that up, I mean, having brought the heat island effect to everyone's attention over a year ago and presenting it to council, presenting it to staff, knowing that the messaging got a little mixed where we're trying to say that the council actually made it a fancier parking lot and that's why it's more expensive. And I'm glad you made note that there's nothing we did to make it more expensive. It is what it is. It's code minimum compliant at this point, and we just have to hope for the best. I think procedurally, I'd love to see a landscape architect get involved in the first charrette versus after plans have been made and then they subcontract and go, hey, look at these tiny spots we have for you, make magic. Because that's the worst time for a landscape architect to really have significant effect on a project. I know this is me just like talking to a big open room, but I just needed to say it so I could sleep good tonight. That's it.
You know, I'll hit with an ask here. Would it be possible to look at expanded or larger trees with the existing site plan? I don't know why I'm looking at Anthony, but
But not sweet gum trees, please, for the love of God. Whoever
So-
made that decision as a city.
I think that the trees that were spec'd in there were a specific type. They're called I'm going
They're
to get,
overstory trees. Yeah.
overstory
Yeah,
trees.
I mean, yeah, they were site selected for that
I was going to
specific
say, I mean,
application, yeah.
I'm at
Yeah,
the
but-
point where if the landscape architect obviously got involved and was like, I'm going to do the best with what I have for the parameters, then that's likely the best that we have for those parameters.
We could have used someone here to answer questions, though, because even looking up
Yep.
overstory trees, it just means the tallest trees in the canopy, and you can put more than one tree in there. So it would have been nice to have somebody to ask those questions to. Again, I don't want to hold up parking. This is something that's going to pass. But this is a problem. Just like not having enough public updates that aren't behind closed doors in executive sessions so people can see the stepping stones to get to where we get to, this project should have come before us before now. Why? Because we're getting it and it's panic time. We have to pass it, right? That's the feeling. If we don't pass it, you're saying, oh, it's up to you. But if you don't pass it, it's going to be 2023 before we get this done. That's not a choice. That's not a choice. This wasn't done as directed, and now we have to make the choice to do what's right long-term for this area, for this city, for the people, for making the responsible choices that we've all said we want to make environmentally, and then getting parking spaces in right now. It's short-term versus long-term, and this could have been avoided.
I'll add, then I'll get Councilmember Saper there. No, I do always get nervous that, you know, it becomes like the next Armor Road. We look at it and we say, okay, well, it's not enough, and now we're out there reconstructing it again. We're adding more islands, or we're changing the trees, and a $2 million parking lot becomes a $10 million parking lot, as we learned on Armor Road real fast when you do phase 1 17 times. So there we go. I'll end with that. Councilmember Saper, please.
Yeah, this whole project is a good case study in how not to do developments in any city. It started out with some lack of information from previous staff to the council, and it's continued with problems that Councilman Tull has amply pointed out in terms of delays and sort of sleight of hand, not intentional maybe, but it happened in terms of how the final project would look. And we didn't have these discussions, as you pointed out, far in advance. And I think however, I think we do have a choice. We can actually get a project that we don't want now, and then and then we'll have all kinds of complaints later from staff, possibly council people, residents, of course, businesses, and it'll be too late to fix them. So maybe the wiser course of action would be now to fix them now and then wait another 6 months or 12 months to get it completed. We do have a choice, I think. We can say no to this now and try to correct some of the compounding errors that have occurred throughout this whole project. And we're talking, and people need to know how much city money has gone into this project and what benefit are they getting from it. And until then, I couldn't vote for this. We do have a choice.
Overall, I would add, we do need to get the parking lot done as well. You know, I would just, especially on the west side of this, would love to see, I'm going to do the motion there, a larger canopy there, a bigger tree, something a little bit wider than what, because those islands really look similar. Matter of fact, some of them look wider. Why they didn't include larger trees on the west side of the plan, I don't know. But maybe something we can figure out.
I think we have a choice, but honestly, for the businesses, I think the choice is, let's not pass it today. Let's come back in our next meeting with a little more information. so we know what we're agreeing to. I don't think we can wait 6 months because then we've missed the season and we can't build it. But I think we could choose not to pass it today and come back with more information and pass it in 2 weeks. And maybe have somebody here that could answer some of these questions about, no offense to you, but I mean, people that did the plans about why did we choose these trees? Do we feel like it would do anything to help reduce the amount of heat coming off that asphalt? And if not, this late in the game, are there other choices we could put into that same space without changing the plans of where the curb sets are?
Councilmember Bailey.
And I think I'd just like to ask a question more than anything. So this is 500,000 over what evidently had been put in the budget. Do you have a feeling where that money is needed? What is changing? I know Jesse has spoke to oil prices, but we haven't asked you the question.
I'll try to touch on the 500,000 real quick. That was a number really just grabbed out of the sky. I don't know how much.
But this amendment is for an additional
The additional amount. Okay, I was
Yeah,
going to say from the
yeah,
original
yeah.
though. The original basis for that though was a $500,000 estimate. I'm not sure what the basis was for that. There wasn't a strong basis for that. It was a number plugged into a sheet of paper. I mean, that's how this started. And I think now we're getting real cost. And so now that's where the difference is, was that the first number was so off because there really wasn't much of a basis for that.
I recognize that, but we are asking for an additional 500,000. What's causing it?
Well, I think what the mayor said was kind of the long and the short of it there. I mean, so initially there was a number thrown out there. I don't know, wasn't actually with the city at the time when that number came up, the 500,000. I think as we progressed into design, typically you start out with like a 10%, 30%, 60%, 90% milestones. And each time you hit those milestones, you end up kind of recalculating your estimate as you go. I think as soon as they got into design and started looking at different options and things, how we want the parking lot to look, the initial estimate from the engineering company was 1.1. I mean, the bids came in at 1.2. That's actually, the engineer's estimate final was 1.5. So we actually did come in, well under engineer's estimate. But I think, a lot of, as Jesse said, asphalt costs do go up. But I think just, hitting in between there, the 1.2 versus the 1.5, they actually kind of get, under engineer's estimate, but pretty close.
Okay. And then the follow-up to that is, it sounds like we had two bidders. You've been through a couple of these. I would hope that you could speak to, do you feel like they were fair and competitive bids?
I would, yes, I would say they would, yeah.
Do you feel like you would need time, you would benefit from additional bids?
From additional bids?
Yeah.
Again, 1.5 was the engineer's estimate. Both bids were under engineer's estimate.
Okay.
And I think, they were probably far enough apart that one would say, I think this was a pretty competitive process.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I believe you're next. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, what is the start date that this sets out? I don't recall from the contract. When would they be looking to roll machines?
If this was approved this
If we
evening,
approve
when would
it-
they start the project?
Yeah.
Oh, that was probably.
Construction date?
What does she have? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was
Did you have a non-Tom Barzee question?
start date of the start?
Did you have a non-Tom Barzee question for someone else? Well, did you want to go ahead and fire away with someone else while Tom looks into that?
Then the question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and get rolling. while he does.
I understand where, Lisa and Amy and other of these concerns related to the green space are coming from. But from my standpoint, I don't see oil prices going down. I don't see asphalt prices going down. And I just feel like if we delay this tonight, we're going to delay it for 3 to 6 months from now. And then it's going to be September before we know it. And then, everything's going to be put on hold for the calendar year. And we're back to square one. So I do feel in that sense that we do have an obligation to the neighboring businesses to kind of meet the agreements that we made with them. And in addition to that, I think that if we do not move along with this project, then we are going to eventually be in breach of an existing contract, and
Yeah, but
possibly
I would
have some
just like
kind
to
of-
point out, I never said I would like to to not do this project. I just want to point that out. I never
Right, but I
said,
think
"Let's
if we
scrap the
delay,
project."
if we delay a month, or if we delay 2 months, we're going to be quickly approaching that timeline where we can no longer, like Kim mentioned, meet the time frame for those companies to be able to start and complete the project this calendar year.
Kim, do you think some of these questions could be answered by our next meeting?
Yeah, that's kind of the genesis
Let me
of
give
my
the
question.
answers to,
Yeah, go for it.
yeah, let me give the answers, if I could, to the question. They have 120 days from the date notice to proceed is given by the city. And the notice to proceed is given after we have all of their insurance here, we have all bonds in, and then the Public Works Director will give them a notice to proceed. So they have 120 days to do that. And so, and these bids, just so you know, I was also checking that, the bids are good, the numbers are good for 60 days after, from the date bids were turned in. So in other words,
what was
we
that
still
day?
have, pardon?
How many days do we have from?
Oh, that was like last week.
We have 60, we have to agree to this, their bid numbers are good for 60 days.
When do we receive the bids, I guess
April
was the question.
26th.
There we go.
April
Thank you. Thank you.
26th.
Okay, so we've got it.
I'm sorry.
You're good. We're throwing a lot at you
She
there, Tom.
opened them.
Tom's
She
all over the
opened
place.
them.
I guess, so what I'm trying to get at is, I understand Lisa's concern, and if there's more information that you want to feel comfortable making a vote, if we push it to the next meeting, what sort of, like, ramifications do we see on getting the project going? Like, if we push, could we miss a window for them to get going? Are they gonna move on to another project?
Our meeting is under the deadline that he gave us.
Right, but like, I'm just saying, they have a construction schedule, like, they're gonna get started on a project, or they're not, and then they'll move to another one. So if we miss the start date, we could get pushed for a while. I don't know, that's why I'm trying to see. I don't wanna stall and then have them not be able to start.
I think we'd have to talk to the contractor. I mean, I talked to them today, you know, by the time they turn in the paperwork, the insurance, the bonding information, everything Tom was talking about, and, you know, we're still looking at 2 to 3 weeks before we start. We would like to, we usually have a pre-construction meeting as well to kind of walk through different practices in the city, what time you can start, what, you know, just kind of basic things like that. So just comment again on the start time. I think we're still good. You know, it could be closer to the start of June.
I guess I'll step, I mean, I think some of these questions kind of depend on what the ask really is here.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're saying a clean slate, everyone just had an issue. No, I mean, then everything's out the door and then whatever, we're going all over the place and it's crazy. Is there a more direct,
I think
specific
the
ask of the
ideal
question
thing
at the
that
moment?
should have happened didn't happen, and so
Yeah.
we can't ask for that. I think what should happen now is, I have no doubt we're going to hit 1.5 million. I truly, fully believe we will hit that before the end, and I've come to terms with that. That's something that's going to happen. When we spend $1.5 million on a parking lot that we're responsible for, we did this, and the marching orders we gave were, we want to do this responsibly. I think at this point, all we can do is ask questions for the professionals that put this plan together to say, is there anything else we could do to help mitigate the heat island effect? Is there anything else we could do to address the issues that we spoke about at the very beginning? We can do that in 2 weeks if they're available, even to get back by email, and we would be under that date.
I know there's some concerns about us swapping out the trees, I guess, is that, so ultimately, is that they asked, could you upsize those, I guess?
I think you
would be-
would be able,
If we're looking
I mean,
at-
can we, without changing curbs, because I know once you start changing where things are, we're talking about a whole new plan, and we can't do that. I understand that.
Worst case, can they set those trees in, we move them somewhere else and then put bigger ones in ourselves? Is that a way to get around contract bid issues? Hey, they delivered on contract and set those trees there.
Yeah, and I mean,
Go
unless we're
throw 'em
talking
in the
about,
park.
because if your
I mean,
ask is about the trees,
right.
then that could be, we could approve and then change trees. If it's about redesigning, which it doesn't sound like you're talking about, then we could move. forward.
I fully understand that we do not have time to redesign this parking lot because it was left until the absolute very end before anybody saw the plans. I understand that. I understand that the businesses need parking spaces. I am in no way trying to hold this up for them. What I am saying is, given the hand that we've been dealt, is there anything else that we can do to address the issues that we brought up at the beginning of this discussion. And I think we can get those answers for our next meeting in 2 weeks.
Not sure who's taking it.
Some of the challenges is that I don't know the legal ramifications of changing stuff. Bids have been open, specs have been, but, I mean, if the council is not wanting to
But there's a
proceed-
reason why we're voting on this, right? Like, this isn't a sealed, done deal. There's a reason why you vote, because we may not approve it. Like, it shouldn't be a rubber stamp. There's a reason why we come through this process.
That is absolutely correct. I do want to make sure, though, you understand an important factor here that makes this a little bit different than maybe just a typical city project. We started off in the original agreement, parking development agreement, with 302 parking spots. And in the first or second one,
249.
those numbers were reduced down, and they're reduced according to the agreement by a proportionate share. They get a few more than we do, and,
But I would
you know,
just
as
like
we
to point out,
reduce-
those were reduced down for minimum requirements, not for any special asks. These are the minimum requirements for this number of spaces.
Oh, okay, I see what understand what you're saying. I just don't, we have a contractual obligation with the Millers, and I don't want to be adjusting numbers of parking spaces because that's kind of critical to them. You know, the last time we did it, they had to really kind of study it. They were fine, and we moved
Yeah,
forward.
I already conceded that we can't change the layout.
Fine. Then I'm not aware of any other legal issue that we would have, other than people are asking, I get emails pretty regularly from some people down in that area asking when we're going to start the project. And I respond when we, after the council passes a contract, approving a contract with the contractor, and that's about it. They were aware that this was on the agenda this evening, but I don't see any of them here in attendance.
Well, it's either Anna or Saper here. We'll go Councilmember Palumbi.
I guess to Lisa's point, like realistically, if we delayed this 2 weeks to the next meeting, what can we really expect in terms of, can we have the landscape people actually give us different options for trees? Can we, if feasibly, can we have somebody give us additional information in 2 weeks? Or is that more like a month, 2 months down the line? Because I think that's what Lisa's trying to get at is, if we delayed this, what options do we have 2 weeks from now or a month from now?
We could definitely have the landscape architect or the prime consultant come speak to the design.
Even though they bid it on this design?
I'm sorry?
Even though they've already bid based on this design?
Well, I guess like I was saying, we could have them come speak to this design. I would caution that, changing the design too much would, because this is accepting a bid for a specific design. So if we changed it, it would be altering the original, what was bid on. So that could get.
Like I asked before, can we just not take in the trees and do something else with them?
Well, is it more
Would be
along
worth
the
a
lines
separate
of a confirmation as to speaking with them and getting a confirmation from them that these are the best trees we can use for the space?
We can definitely get
And
that
it's
answer.
almost like it makes you sleep better at night because you get that answer from the people who are actually doing it that says, this is our best option, and we didn't, cut corners or give you the cheapest option because we're trying to cut costs. Realistically, this is the most appropriate tree to place there.
Right, and I think we could definitely have them come answer that question, but I do think that, I do believe, after going through the design process with Wilson and Stantec, that they did, provide the best trees they can. I think, if I'm understanding maybe some of the conversation on the west side of the parking lot, that's actually Clay Street that comes up there, that's a platted public right-of-way, so they did go with a smaller tree there because it's functioning more like a street. So that could be some of the, what was noticed there on the plans. But for more detailed, we could definitely have them provide analysis on why they selected what they did.
Councilmember Saper.
I move that we table this 2 weeks to our next meeting and try to get some of these answers clarified, or get some of these questions clarified with some answers.
We already have a motion and a second on the floor.
Does that, can you not table after a motion in a second? I thought you could still table after a motion in a second.
Or don't they have to pull their first motion?
No, they can
Amended.
But they can't move to table? I think you can move to table, even though a question's already been asked and seconded. Yeah, you can move, yeah.
Move to table if that's
Yeah,
what the
that
motion
ranks.
is. Yes, you can move to table at any time.
Okay, so is there a second to the motion to table for 2 weeks?
Before, like, I have a
Uh,
question.
A second.
Is there a motion, or is there a second to the motion to table for 2 weeks?
I seconded.
Okay, there's a second on that. Further council member discussion, Councilmember Smith.
Okay, so we have a, what, 140,000 or so contingency on this? Is that right? Isn't that usable to make flexible decisions within the bounds of the contract? So if we wanted to sub out larger trees, we could use that contingency to do so? I mean, that seems like a workable solution where we get the ball rolling, and if we want larger trees, we got $140,000 that we could feasibly use for that. That's why I don't see tabling it tonight. We can have those discussions after the fact, but we get the ball moving and we get those in. If we're not redesigning curbs, it's swapping out trees, and that's where we're at. And so I see moving forward with this and going on. So I don't know where we're at with motions. We've got a couple on top of each
We
other.
got to work them in kind of the reverse order here. So first you'd vote on the table.
I'm a fan of the idea of both, like, right? In my mind, I'm like, if there's a landscape architect involved, they try to make the absolute best decision because that's like their creed, right? They're just like, I am here and existing, and my career depends on me making the best choice of how environment and asphalt interact with each other and how cars and beautiful trees and specific species of trees interact. And so I want to believe that they just made the best decision, absolutely. But I'm also a fan then of saying, like, so if we did approve tonight with the contingency of that we have that little bit of elbow room or whatever it is of money to kind of go, but we would still like that feedback to say, hey, obviously we're approving, but we want to know this information, so we have that at the ready, and that we're open to, what other variation that could have been a possibility.
All right, further discussion.
Just clarifying, if we vote on the move to table, and the move to table passes, we are not approving it tonight.
Correct. That would be tabled for 2 weeks then.
Okay.
So sorry, we're doing a little bit of.
Do we need to take you need a minute, or are you good?
It sounds like we would be able to bring forward a change order.
Yes. We have the right, under the contract itself, specifically applicable to something like this, I'll read the first part of a sentence, it's pretty long, but I'll only read the sentence. It says, "The city shall have the right at any time during the performance of the services, without invalidating this agreement, to order extra work beyond that specified in the scope of services, or make changes by altering, adding to, or deducting from said work." In other words, so if you wanted to, if you wanted to change trees, if you wanted to add trees or something, we would be able to do that under the existing contract without going out to bid again. If that's what I understand you're sort of talking about.
Yes, that's one of many parts, yeah.
One of many.
So we can adjust it without going out back to bid again.
Right.
There we go. So if we upsize the trees, then potentially you believe that would be allowed without rebid and whatever else that would take. Okay. Are there council member comments?
Well, I mean, with that new information, does that mean, because right now we're about to vote on tabling. I guess my thought with that is that we're not going to redesign it. We know we're going to build it. We know the cost and the contingency amount of money, everything. Now that we know we can have change orders, I feel a little bit more confident about approving it tonight, but still getting the information provided to us with open discussion for the next meeting.
What if?
What if?
I'm thinking through this.
I
Say this
raise
out loud.
you.
What if we approve it and then you give me the additional oversight to follow that process over the next couple weeks and look at larger trees? I don't know. I'm trying to think of middle ground where it can still be done. We don't have to meet 7 times in the next 2 weeks.
We would probably bring forward a change order, that way it is,
And
it
ultimately, yeah.
follows the contract. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That way we get council
Yeah.
touch base on that.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of a way that we could do some work in the interim.
Kim, to be
And-
clear,
and
you
Tom's
mean
still
change
looking.
order as in tabling would supply you with a change order opportunity, or approving?
Should,
and
should the
then-
city council move forward with the current contract, I think staff would probably bring forward the landscape architect for better understanding of which trees currently are outlined and what possibilities for trees for the council to decide. Have the council have that discussion, and then staff would bring forward the task order after direction was given.
So the schedule on that would be approved contract tonight.
Yeah, that would be a no on a table.
Come back
yes on approved.
and look at a change order depending on what we hear. That sound good with Anthony as well? I don't know. Now we're outside of his realm again, though. Really, I don't know whose realm we're in anymore. We're in everybody's. Crystal, anything? I'm kidding. Okay, further council member discussion. So the first motion will be for a table for 2 weeks. If this one passes, then it'll be, this item and the next one will be carried over for 2 weeks. If it fails, then we'll go back to the original motion. We all good on that? We good? All right, all in favor of table of 2 weeks, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no.
No.
Motion to table 2 weeks fails. Now we're back to the original motion, farther council member discussion. Seeing none, is there a, what, you know, I flipped all my stuff over. What are we at here?
Resolution.
We're at a resolution. All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve the construction, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no.
No.
Motion carries. Next item, please.
Number 14, budget resolution, 16th and Clay parking lot construction. Resolution number 22-037.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any council member conversation? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no.
No.
Motion carries.
Item 15, approving accounts due and payable by the city through April 30th, 2021. Bill number 7680, ordinance number 9477.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through April 29th, 2022.
I move that bill number 7680 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9477.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
Yes.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Toll,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through April 29th, 2022.
All right, so I am going to hijack this for a second here. I think I'm supposed to do this one. We did get a late application from Call Sign Brewery to hold a bags tournament on May 14, 2022 from 9 to 10 p.m. They submitted this late, so they weren't able to get it on this agenda, but it's going to happen basically between, I think, now and next meeting. And so staff, I guess, wanted to know if council could perhaps give a pre-approval to the idea of them closing their parking lot for an event in their parking lot and consuming alcohol. It still needs to be approved by the fire department, police department, community development, but I know, you're just learning about this now. It still needs to be approved by all these departments, but we won't have time to come back for councils. So they're wondering if council would potentially give a
So
if the rest of the departments approve, then you would approve.
move to approve if Dave Hargis likes it. that
It was a
kind of thing.
reverse thing. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, or we just reject it and, or, yeah, there's,
So,
like I said, they can still reject it. This gives, I mean,
Did you
this is
just say a
enforcing them.
parking lot with booze? I missed it. I was like,
Outdoor consumption of alcohol will be obtained by the applicant prior to event. And if you want to see a map from a long distance here,
Yeah, it's just informal, right?
they have their parking lot, there's a line,
Yeah.
they're throwing bags, throwing lanes, I guess, for bags.
would or would not be good with it.
Thumbs up?
Thumbs up.
But yeah, you,
So?
okay. So this still needs to go on to staff approval though, so it's not a formal approval, but staff would still need to approve this and do their thing. So this could still potentially get rejected, just want to make that clear. But we won't have time to meet on it again. I know, Saper, sorry, sorry. Procedurally, it's very odd, but they didn't know that the 3-week lead-in. Hearing no opposition, I'll say then, whatever. Good. And am I supposed to do the ARPA one too? Or
We'll
s-
bring
or
forward
someone
that
more
item
formal? Well, yeah, okay, perfect.
after
Good.
staff report.
Save the world from having to hear me explain this. Mike, please go ahead.
With the wording?
ARPA, yes.
Oh, the ARPA. okay.
Revenue.
Yeah,
replacement.
I apologize to all of you. It didn't make it in the packet, but we placed on the dais a memo for you regarding the ARPA reporting. Basically, Treasury changed, I'll use Kim's term, moved the goalpost on staff about mid-April and said that the reporting for ARPA, the ARPA funds had to go into a designated category. Knowing that there wasn't a meeting prior to April 30th, for talking to all of you, I advised for them to put it in as revenue loss and list every possible intended use. So it gave the most flexibility, knowing that the council hadn't had the full discussion on the intended use. And of course the follow-up recommendation into that is us setting that up to have that discussion with the ARPA funds. But we wanted to let you know that it had to be in by Saturday. So we set it up with the broadest intended use as possible.
And it's
to allow you.
still in a separate fund, correct?
Correct.
And
Correct.
From my understanding, this doesn't change, everything council had previously talked about ideas for this. This wouldn't change any of that. We'd still be able to use it, that broad range of things. The $30 million of ideas I said we had.
Yes.
We could still use. Okay. Councilmember Smith.
Does that, so we discussed the revenue replacement, which makes the most sense from a flexibility standpoint, but if I remember correctly, if it becomes replacing lost revenue, it goes into the city's general fund and then can't be used for private benefit, is that?
No, we don't believe so. It would still remain in the special allocation fund, and we believe that still leaves the broadest flexibility for the use of the funds.
Okay, so, but they said by April 30th, we had to put it into this category of lost revenue or elsewhere?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And that's where, through staff's research, felt that the lost revenue was still left the broadest flexibility without the, any final discussion occurring with the council.
Okay, yeah, as long as that's the case, because,
Yeah.
I mean, it's already been done, so I just want to make sure going forward, that if we do earmark or decide to use it for a private benefit, that we're not in some kind of weird legal crosshair that says you
Right.
can't use public money for.
If I see a memo from Tom and that happens.
That's all.
We've
was a
checked on
direction.
a lot of our sister cities, and they have taken the same action. Again, this requirement came down very late in the game without a whole lot of clarification. So we are not unlike our sisters and brothers in the metro that have done this designation because it was required with extremely short notice.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Further questions on that? Okay, any other items?
Speaking of ARPA funding, just an FYI, I did pull up Clay County's agenda, and it is on here. So we have made a request for Clay County's ARPA funding in the amount of, and I do believe that they put it in there for the same amount that we had requested of $700,000, and that would go toward the Burlington water line. As the council knows, that is a pretty large investment on the city's infrastructure. That is to redo one of the main lines, the water distribution lines, to everybody in North Kansas City. Now, Clay County Commissioners still have to take a vote on that disbursement, but we are hoping that they approve it, and that would help fund that particular project.
When is that meeting?
It is on the May 4th agenda for the Clay County Commissioners for their consideration.
Any surtax on there? Okay.
So we will we will be watching that meeting from here. It will be televised. So we are hoping to have good news to share on that particular project.
Fantastic. Further staff comments?
Mike, I have something I need to.
Crystal actually has something.
Yes.
Crystal, please, please.
The Harrah's breakfast for the money that we gave out a while back will be on the 10th at 8:30 at Harrah's. So if you know you want to go, if you could let me know, or if you think you're going to go, let me know so I can give them an RSVP.
Fantastic. Thank you. Tonight was supposed to be shoes night that I could call on her, and she's not even here. So, that it? There we go. Then we are on to council member comments, starting with council member Clark.
Great. Nice work once again to the North Kansas City debate team. That was awesome. Thank you to Jeff and Tom for the streetcar presentation. Today is actually National Two Different Colored Shoes Day. I didn't lose my mind. I purposely wore two different colored shoes. There's a woman that started that just went against societal norms and said, you know what, let's celebrate our diversity and differences. Kids love it. It's a pretty good time. I recommend it. This Saturday, don't look at your neighbor's lawn because it is Naked Gardening Day. Just letting you know. It exists. It's known in this month. It's a real thing.
You know, you got to let me know if you want some proclamations.
I didn't do this. What? No, but I want to thank staff and everybody's time. And yeah, that's all I'll say for now.
How do you follow that, Councilmember Palumbi?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short. The only thing I wanted to say is I would encourage all to participate in the diversity and inclusion training that is going to be offered to everyone because I've heard it is a great training program, and I hope that we all participate.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, so I have three things I'll try to run through quickly. Back in January, I emailed the mayor and city administrator at the time, interim, and Mr. Barzee, trying to get some items on the agenda, namely decriminalizing marijuana and legalizing golf carts. And at that time, I was told that we should put them on a work session. And I was just told before today's meeting that work sessions are full through August. But I was also told that the mayor has the ability to put these as discussion items on an upcoming agenda. So I would like to request that be done. For people wondering what I'm talking about real quick, in the city of Kansas City, Missouri, marijuana has been decriminalized under 35 grams of cannabis. It was passed 9-4 by their city council back in 2020. And I think our police officers have enough things to worry about, actual crime that has victims. It's something that I think a majority of our council would approve. So I'd like to see that on an upcoming agenda. And then regarding golf carts, there are municipalities. So the state of Missouri allows municipalities to determine golf cart legality as of 2009. And many of our surrounding jurisdictions allow golf carts on streets that are under 25 miles per hour or below, including Riverside and Parkville. Riverside passed it in 2018. Parkville actually passed it 10 years ago in 2012. I think we have a perfect community for that. We're flat. There's a lot of streets here that are 20 to 25 mile per hour streets, and it would just add another mode of transportation for the community. And then lastly, the third item I wanted to bring up was the last meeting that we appointed Councilmember Smith to the Planning Commission, and I brought up the fact that realtors should not be on the Planning Commission. I was met with people didn't believe me and basically said there was no basis in me saying that. So for people that don't know, like when you're elected to city council, you're given this binder that I think Councilmember Bailey, just got one of these. So look at the size of this thing. So I actually read this, and after the meeting last week, I went to sleep. And have you ever had a dream where like you're thinking about something and you wake up and you have the answer? So that happened to me, and I woke up and was like, I know where I heard that. It was in the manual. So I went back through this manual, and in here it's actually the first document in here is from the Missouri Municipal League. There's a document called the Manual for Newly Elected Officials. And if you turn to page 44, it says appointment to boards. With respect to appointments to boards and commissions, the mayor and council should make every effort to secure the best appointees possible. They can improve this process by, and then they list 6 things. Item 5, avoiding persons who have immediate conflicts of interest by being appointed to a particular board. This presents some problems because it tends to eliminate those who are most knowledgeable, i.e. realtors from the planning or zoning board. So the author of this actually went out of their way to use realtors on the planning commission as an example of who you should not put on a particular board for having conflicts of interest. So I would also suggest that you guys re-examine that and go back and read this document. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Saper.
I would just like to point out that the discussions we've had tonight are what is what our job really should be. And the people who have been watching this in the audience and on video should know that that kind of discussion doesn't mean that we aren't all concerned about the best interests of the city of North Kansas City, but that we have differences, and those are differences that we discuss and iron out. If we don't agree, we vote, and then we go forward from there. So I just want people to know that what you saw tonight was what we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Patel.
I wanted to thank Councilmember Palumbi for your work with the Equity and Inclusion Committee. I'm very thrilled that we have this training going out, and I will participate in it. And thank you for the streetcar presentation. For people who didn't watch it yet or are going to go back and watch that presentation from 6 o'clock, there is a survey for you to fill out. I have looked at it. I know you have as well on your phone. Don't do it on your phone. So as soon as you open it up on your phone, you're going to say, ooh, can't do it on my phone. You're going to want to do that at the computer, okay? Or iPad or tablet, whatever you use. But that is open and available for you to give your input until May 13th, so next week on Friday. So make sure you get that done. I would like to apologize for landscape architects because I kept saying the wrong thing, so I'm sorry, landscape architects. And then I would like to address staff because I'm sure that you feel that I was attacking earlier. I feel like we have a fantastic staff. This particular issue that I took issue with is one item, but I want you to know that I think that the staff that we have overall are fantastic and do a wonderful job. If I had any feedback, it would just be that I feel like we need to bring things to the public earlier. And I don't want to say transparent because I don't believe anything's hidden. I don't believe it was intentionally not brought. But as we work and work and work and work and work, if we get to the point where we have to pass this, or let's have Tom look up to see whether we would be in breach of contract because we've waited so long to talk about it, that's a problem. We should be able to talk about these things. And to that point, One North, I know I already said it, but bringing even limited information to public meetings is fantastic, and I wish that we did more of it, just to give people and to give us as council members something that we can talk to people about. Because if it's all in closed session, then there's literally nothing that we can talk about with people that are coming up to ask us. So I would love to see more of that.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith.
You nailed it on the streetcar survey. Please do it on your computer. Don't try on your phone. You'll be discouraged and you'll quit. The signs on Howell look great. Mr. Sands, your road crews have done a great job. We've done multiple iterations. Now we have the ones that are at eye level. You see them really well when you drive your car. You could probably drive a car over them. I wouldn't recommend it, but they would look like they'd pop right back up. And then again, to the discussion tonight, it got a little heated. I never enjoy disagreeing with the folks up here because everybody wants what's best for the city. And to specifically address part of what Lisa was talking about, while I don't have the same level of concern with what's going on with the landscaping, I know you do, and it's more of a process question overall. And I'd like to see, as we move forward, I've thought this a lot, that this might be the last approval in this whole 18th and Swift area process. But once this deal is finished and finalized, I'd like to take a deep dive, maybe in a work session at some point, to find out what we could do better or do differently in future projects so we don't run into these constant feeling backed into a corner type situations. Because that is the feel tonight, where we needed to approve this. Otherwise, we would be, possibly in legal crosshairs. So going forward, I'd like to see some process improvements on that. I think our staff does a great job, but let's take this as a lesson to learn.
There we go. Councilmember Bailey.
I enjoy being the last one. Everybody is thanked. There's not much to talk about, so enjoy the warm weather. We're supposed to have a good weekend.
There you go. It is easy going last here. Just under my comments, I had proclamations, several. Mark 50th anniversary, did a proclamation for that, Lyme Disease Awareness Month, Bike Month, and obviously we honored the debate team earlier. So with that, I have nothing further. besides take the survey for streetcar. Now go, please.
Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session is requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute, Section 610.0212.
Move to approve.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey?
Yes.
Thank you, and for everyone watching at home, the feed will cut off, but there will be no further votes and no further business discussed. Thank you. No, we're in a